I must say that when I see all the faces, I know now why I didn't retire. Because how can anybody retire from a passion? I don't know.
Our economy and the gender inequality will catch up. As a brand, we better be prepared for that.
Last time I saw you, you were actually talking about watches that belong to your father.
Yeah, this is all your fault.
Yeah.
You guys,
Yeah.
I said it in the video and in my intro.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it up, but this is all your fault. I didn't care about watches until you guys put all these videos gaming the algorithm.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I must say that when I see all the faces, all the smiling eyes, I know now why I didn't retire. It would have been a real shame to retire. And by the way, I'm totally, and the French, they will not necessarily like me, but I'm against the retirement too early. I'm for the retirement, but late. Because how can anybody retire from a passion? I don't know. We must make analyses with psychologists. What does it mean? How can you retire from love? How can you retire from a passion? And I thought that I could retire at 80 from the passion because I didn't know that I had a passion. I had been used to work in the watch business for more than 50 years without knowing that it was a deep passion that has helped me to stay alive. And it's only when I left my passion that I suddenly had the idea, the sensation that I was dead. Because no passion, no life. And that is terrible. And since then, I said, I have two possibilities. Possibility number one, I call, as I did in the past with Mr. Hayek, I call Mr. Arnault and say, Mr. Arnault, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I should not have sold, but what is sold, but I would like to work. I want to sell my company, but I want still to work in the company. Or I can eventually buy a brand. And with my son, Pierre, we decided that we could have a brand just with my name. And this name has a certain value. It will not help us to become a billionaire, but it has a little value because it's a good name for a start, for the startup. So we decided we would take my name, but not my first name, because my name is Jean-Claude. And I said, we cannot put Jean-Claude Biver, because what about you, Pierre, when I'm not there anymore? I'm still alive for maybe 20 years. Yeah, a little bit more even. But because my mother is 95. 95. It's the excitement, you know. So I decided, because I saw that my son had a real passion for collecting watches. And he is better than me. He knows much more about the history. He knows more about the watchmaking art of the beginning of this century. I know a little bit more about collecting, and he knows more about the history and all the different events that happened. So I said, and my wife was furious, because I said to my son, stop the university, come with me, you will learn more by coming and being my assistant than being at the university. And she said, no, our son will do the university. And my son said, Papa, you are right, of course. Well, and he stopped to study. He left the university. He was in the second year of his doctorate, and we started to work on the name Biver. And I'm very pleased that today I have the opportunity to see all of you and also to talk with you and to tell you some secrets.
You talked about in Talking Watches the experience that you had at AP to learn first. And I think your career is pretty well known, that year of learning. But I'm curious how that sort of informed your perspective on collecting, on craftsmanship, on the craft of what you have built as a collection and then sold and then rebuilt over the years. I mean, where did that start with AP? What did you learn?
The boss of AP, Monsieur Gaulet, he said to me, as you are a young student, you don't know anything about the watchmaking art. I can offer you a position, but before you take the position, you must learn about the cheese, about the trees, about the grass, about the snow. It means about the people. Because as long as you don't understand the people, you will not understand the art. And I said, what the hell is he telling me? Because I was young and I was not used to that. I thought I could immediately start and I could travel and I could sell and I could... and he said, no, you must study during 8-9 months. What are the characters? What are the characteristics of watchmaker? Why do they live where they are now? How come they developed all these skills? How come that the farmer who is used to cows is suddenly becoming a guy that masters 1/100 of a millimeter with his same fingers, the fingers of the miracle we were saying in those days. Because the fingers that were milking the cows, they were also capable to work on 1/10 of a millimeter. The fingers of the miracles. And he said, you're going to learn all this. And in order to learn, you must first look. Because through the eyes, the art will enter into your blood. Because they must find an entry point. And the entry point will be the eyes. And you will sit next to each watchmaker for 6 to 8 months just to look what they are doing. Why? And smelling. Because in a watch company, there is a special smell. There is a special air. Because as the watchmakers are not moving much, the heat is very unusual, 25, 26 degrees Fahrenheit. And there is a certain thickness of the air. You will learn all this. And you will play football with the team, the watchmaker team. You will ski with them. You will go to the forest. You will know every bird that sings. You will be able to know. You will know the mushrooms. As long as you have not made this, you will not become a good ambassador for us. I said to my incredible, I think I can join. He's talking about the mushroom, about the Christmas trees. The guy is crazy. And she said, no, go. She was happy that I could leave. So that's how I started. And this is the biggest privilege, or one of the biggest privilege I got in my life. To have I don't remember how much it was, 6 or 7 months. And he said, as you are going to learn, I will pay you only half salary during the 6 or 7 months. But I think I got an enormous privilege because I understood where does the watchmaking art come from? Why from there? And why not from Zurich or from Geneva? Why from this valley? What's special there? So I got the instruction from the base on. I understood from the basic side. And so after 6 months, when I sold AP, I never showed the watch. And the German retailer, the president of the Association of the German Retailers, said, there is a lunatic coming to visit you. Probably you will notice he comes with no watches. Because I said to myself, I was so much enthusiastic, I was so much driven by passion. I said, I have to talk, I have to explain. Once I have explained, I will show the watch. But that will only be the second part of my show. The first part is I explain, so people get conscious. And then the second part is, now I show you what I told you. And, and I became I became immediately famous in Germany because people were telling, that's the guy who comes with no watches. And that's exactly what I wanted. Because each time I showed the watch, the tension was gone on the watch, and nobody listened anymore to me. So I said the best way that people listen to me, I show no watches. So that was my start. And from that day on, I have never left this business. I have never left. And now I am even nearly back to the Vallée de Joux, because the atelier of my today's brand, it's 8 kilometers from there. So I am suddenly at the end of my life. I am back to the beginning of my life. And that is the biggest privilege, that I can end my life where I started it. Wow, the 12 o'clock, you know.
Can I just interject for 1 second? How great is this guy? Yeah. So it's been a few years since you and I have shared a stage. We did it at our Hodinkee 10 anniversary. We did it on YouTube for Talking Watches. When, if I may say, you were introduced, at the time you were running Hublot, which, if I may say, at the time, the Hodinkee crowd was not necessarily a big fan of, if I can say that. And so instead, we talked about, you had a minute repeating Hublot, #1, I believe, or maybe number 00, I forget. And you had a wide collection of Patek Philippe's. And that, I think, at least in our little world, which is a bubble, if I may say, changed the perception of you as a watch guy. Because you were buying 24.99s and World Times and only watch pieces, which I think one of them belongs to Pierre now, which is a nice gift for a son, by the way. And how has your collecting of Patek and other great brands really informed what you're doing with your own brand? And then also, I think, because people love this, people can't believe it, but what was AP like back then? How many watches were you selling? I know those are two very different questions, but I think fun questions.
So AP was a very small brand.
Yeah.
And I started at AP in 1973, which means I missed the launch of the Royal Oak.
Yeah.
I came a few months later. But when I joined AP, the Royal Oak was a real problem. And Mr. Gollet told us we must convince the world that a sporty watch with screws, water-resistant, made in steel, is still a luxury watch. We must give to the metal of steel, we must give to the steel, their noble feeling. And he said, and explained to the people that if the watch is in gold, or if the watch is in steel, the craftsmanship and the hands and the fingers are the same. It doesn't change. It's just a material. So we were in that stage explaining, because everybody said, why do you do in steel? Why water resistant? Nobody goes with such a watch into water. And we said no. So Mr. Gollet had a real vision of the future, of not him, of the future of the industry, because the most successful brands today are Daytona, Patek Philippe, Nautilus. This is all the Royal Oak style. And I remember, because I was there when Gerald Genta was a consultant for AP in those days. And Gerald always said about when we complained about the Nautilus, and we said, come on, you are close to us. You took inspirations. So, okay, we were also right to say that, even if it was not true. But he said something incredible. He said, listen, young people, I will now tell you how I made the Nautilus. I took a royal oak and I have put it 1,000 years into the sea, near into the sand of the sea. And during 1,000 years, wow, and suddenly it became round, soft, and that's the work of the time. So now, from now on, you stop telling me that I took inspiration. It's the work of the sea. And I think the story is incredible. I never dared telling this story because it's like if I would advertise AP now, Patek. But it's such a good illustration. And that is Gerald. That is how he always interpreted. It's like the bracelets. Our bracelets in those days, they were shiny and they were very hard. The test was you take the watch and the strap is like that. And he always said, the strap must fall down because the strap must be smooth and the strap must be very flexible. And as long as you have your stiff, polished straps, that's not what you have to do. So you see, I got really instruction. I got so much from these days. That's why I think I have the biggest privilege. And I want to give this privilege back to my son because I tell him all these little stories, I show him, and I hope he will succeed me. He will be better than me. He's on the way, he's on the way to do better than me. And that is my biggest hope because at the end, the duty of a papa is to bring his son to a level that is above the papa. If your son is below you, God damn, it must be a tragedy. The son must always be better than yourself. So I answered maybe one question, and the second one, what was the question again?
Well, I mean, you started to answer it, which was how that experience has informed what you're doing with the brand now and working with Pierre.
Mr. Philip Stern asked me one day, why do you collect so many Patek? Because I was, from time to time, against him, because I was also trying to get the watch. And I told him, because when I was an employee at AP, I couldn't get you. Now on the auction, I can beat you. So it was a nice fight, because at the end of the day, it brought me some success because it's because of the watches I collected that I got a good reputation and that people suddenly realized that I was not just a marketing guy, I was not just a foreigner, I belonged to the watchmaking art.
And what was it about the pieces that you were seeing at the time, especially when you were at AP and you were seeing, I mean, you talked about in the Talking Watches, the 3700 was a frustration for you, but then you have it in the Talking Watches. What were the things that you were seeing that challenged you or made you realize how important what other people were doing?
You get rich through the competition. And, and if you want to eliminate competition, you make your industry poor. The competition is what keeps us alive, what keeps us fighting, what gives us pleasure, what gives us emotion, what gives us success. So, and the people that are afraid of competition are quite dangerous. It's a wrong attitude. It's a wrong philosophy of life. And when I was much younger, I admired Patek, and Patek was a competitor for AP. By the way, it's still a competitor. But in those days, the distance between AP and Patek was slightly above us. So we were fighting like crazy against Patek. And because we were fighting against Patek, I said, I should not buy in my collection so many APs because I understand them. I must buy some Patek in order to get the feeling. Why Patek? Why are they so successful? What do they do differently? So I took competition as a partner. I said to competition or to Patek, come, teach me, tell me. And I was never rejecting. When you reject competition, you're getting poor. When you accept competition, you're getting rich. And that is what sometimes the Swiss don't understand in the watch business. And that is a slight critique, but very small one. But I have another critique, which is a little bit stronger.
I'm shocked, but let's hear it.
No, sometimes we ask ourselves, what is wrong in the Swiss watch industry? Not much is wrong because it's a very successful part of Switzerland. But in a certain way, we have too many CEOs that are not anymore in love with watches. That's, for me, the biggest tragedy. We have very brilliant CEOs because the industry goes well, but tomorrow they might work for Apple, or tomorrow they work for a car company. And in the past, once you had decided to work in the watch industry, you finished your life in the watch industry. I started at AP in '73, and I'm still not in AP, but I'm still in the industry because I love watches. And we suffer eventually from a lack of love. And I see so many people that are coming as brilliant CEOs, but they come from other fields. And for them, there is a lack of love in general. Today, if there is one lack that the generations have in the world, it's love. We all need love. And I remember when I was a hippie and we were singing, All You Need Is Love. And that was an incredible song. That was a song that was telling us, where's the future? And the future is love. All you need is love. The Beatles, 1966, were singing this. And on a big show that was done by the BBC. And this was a world show. It was for the first time that the entire world could see on a TV set this show. And that was the show where the Beatles sang for the first time, All You Need Is Love. And once you have understood that all you need is love, you don't need to go to church anymore. You are like in church every day. All you need is love. Finished.
I think you're secretly still a hippie. I don't think you were a hippie. I think you are now to some extent, for sure.
Can I actually ask one question? So you mentioned CEOs, and there's one very, 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 very powerful CEO that was kind of an apprentice of yours, in Jean-Frederic Dufour. So what do you think, and I don't know if we're allowed to say or not, what do you think of his tenure at Rolex? And I know you worked with him very closely at Zenith and elsewhere.
Yeah, and he worked for me with Blancpain.
Yeah.
So, and he's still one of my two best friends.
Is that so?
Yeah. He's still, I have only two friends, which is a pity. I would love, I'm happy to have only one wife, but friends I would have 3, 4, 5. Yeah. But I have only two. Jean-Fred is one of the two. And I speak to him at least 2, 3 times every month. And by the way, we bought some vineyards in France together. So now we have also occasions to drink and to
Amazing.
to
A
test
tough
the
allocation.
wine together. So we share a lot of passion. He is, in my opinion, he is the genius of the industry. Some people are geniuses of the art, but Rolex is also the watchmaking art, but in a certain way, it's an industry. And he has shown, because he comes from the watchmaking art, he was the boss of Zenith, and he worked for me at Blancpain, and he was capable to understand Rolex and to bring Rolex to a level that had never existed before. Rolex is now so strong, it has never been so strong in the history. And by the way, all the collectors, they all have at least one Rolex. So it's the most common watch. Everybody has somehow a Rolex. And that is phenomenal. And the way he handles it, the way he travels, he gives his personality, he writes to everybody. He really has invented a new Rolex, and Rolex is reborn through him. And I admire him, I love him. He's just, and he loves watches, and he will never leave the watch industry. He's like me. He started in the watch industry, he will end up in the watch industry.
I'm curious, you also, in your career arc, you moving between different brands, you've also sort of not just rebuilt your career multiple times, but rebuilt your collection multiple times. Was it 2019, 2018 when you sold the 4 watches at Philips? And
Thanks to my son.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's a serious thanks or not, because those are some great watches. But
I must say,
Yeah.
he gave me a vision that I never had. He said to me, "Papa, you have been collecting cars." Yes. From which year was your watch the car collection? From the 60s. Why? Because they were cars I admired when I was 16 years old, 18 years old. And that's remembering me these old days of James Bond and Ferrari, etc. And he said, but today in watches it's the same. Do you think many people will admire your watches from 1901, 1905? The new generation, they will admire much more modern watches from the 50s, from the 60s. So your collection should not be too much stable. Your collection should evolve with the taste and the average age of the collectors. And today, we have collectors that are 30 years old. When I was young, a collector was 60 years old or 70 years old. When I was young, a millionaire could not be under 60. You became a millionaire when you were older than 60. Today, you become millionaire when you go to school.
it seems like he also maybe injected a new sort of interest in you to look at the younger craftsmen that were doing the same thing that you loved when you were his age.
My son is the guardian of my youth. Thanks to him, I don't get old. Because each time I get old, bam! He comes and says, "Hey, where are you going? Come on back." So thanks to my son, I stay young. That I must say. I am incredibly thankful to my son to teach me. I thought I would have to teach him, but not really. He teaches me every day. Every day I learn. Every day I get new ideas. He is animating me. Voila. I think we have that's the partnership that the papa and the son should have. And very often the papas are too strict, or the papas want to impose his views to the young guy. No, I listen to Pierre, and each time he says something that I don't agree with, I say, yes, 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 yes. But I think, why is he doing this? Why is he telling me this? And I try to understand why. And once I understand why, that means I have learned. It's only when I say, oh, I know why you said it. That is for me the signal, hey, he did it. He convinced me. Because I'm not going to do because he says. I'm going to do because he said to me, and I found that he was right.
So I have two last questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience because I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there. But actually, just sort of a two-part one question here. 2 watches. One that you regret letting go, and one that you wish you would have been there for or on top of when you had the opportunity and you regret not getting in the first place.
15.8. This is a Patek Philippe, 1518. It's an incredible watch, I must say. But it's stupid, it's not stupid, but it's very simple to say that. Because out of 100 people, everybody will agree that that's a phenomenal watch. And I think what I should discover are the watches that people don't know. And in that sense, I'm a little bit poor. It means I am in the trend. And to be in the trend is good, but I would like to go outside the trend. I would like to love pieces that people have not discovered. Because then you have an additional value, you have an additional satisfaction, and this additional satisfaction, I'm looking for it. And for me, I regret that I didn't buy François Paul Journe before, that it took me time to realize I was slow, I was too much in the industry. So I have quite a few regrets, which is good because it means I have an evolution. When you have no regret, it means you don't evolve. So never say to somebody, I don't regret anything, because that means you are stubborn. So really, and I think today we have a revenge of the art. The art is coming back in its purity, in its exclusivity, in its dimension even. And the stronger these groups are getting, the more they buy little artisans, the more you have success with these artisans. Because it's exactly the reason why they are successful. And I think we have an interesting moment in our industry, interesting for collectors to discover new things, but also interesting for the people, for the watchmakers, because they don't have anymore this huge pressure of the groups, and the bigger the group gets, the more opportunities are opening for smaller people, for small groups, or for small watchmakers, or for innovations. And that shows us and me that our industry, our art is quite strongly alive.
If anybody has any questions, we can open it up to the floor.
Mr. Biver, first I'd ask that you'd answer my question with a little bit more enthusiasm than you've shown so far. But my question is this: as you started your brand, what fear or concern or pitfall was the greatest in your mind as you were starting your company? And has that fear come to pass and you overcome it, or is it still ahead?
I think the worst will come, because the worst is always, for me, the next. And that makes the attraction. That's why I want to go there, because I know the next is more difficult, and it's like when you are in the mountains. the next, at one day, you will do the Everest, because that's the highest level of planet Earth. So to look always for the most difficult is a challenge. I believe the next is the most difficult, but it's not that I lose courage, it's that I get motivation. And then the next level, and I hope this will not happen, might become finance, because I have decided that I would spend all my money, eventually all, but I will never, I will always try to work independently from banks. Nobody's here from a bank. No, it's okay.
And the microphone.
I have this obsession to work with my own money and to be the own boss at home. And that's why I try to avoid the credit of the banks. But, and now somebody has pushed me to say now the truth, without the bank, I would not be here today, because when I started Blancpain, I needed $22,000, and I didn't have them. And I worked during the night at the post office from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. every night. I was not the only student to do that, but we were a few. I worked every day at the post office, and with the money from the post office, added to the credit of $30,000 from the bank, I could buy Blancpain. So when I criticize the bank, I am a little bit pretentious, because I should never forget that thanks to the $30,000 that they lend me, I was able to exist. So I'm sorry if anybody is from the bank, and I'm sorry against me. I was crazy not to say that. So, so the next step, I think, will be the most difficult, because I can feel the investment in the movements, because we have the ambition. We did now the movement, Hour, Minute, and Second. 100% is new, not 100%. The little parts, all the parts were not made by us. They were made by a very Dubois Desprats, a very famous maker of movements in the Vallée de Joux. But the movement belongs 100% to me, to us. I can sell it to others. It's my movement, although I didn't produce all these little parts. And we have now a chronograph in development. We also have a perpetual already in development, because all these are developments that last between minimum 18 months and 3 years. So I can see that the investment we will need might a little bit be too high for me personally. So it could be that in 2 or 3 years I will ask a bank to help me for a few seconds.
And I want to point out that that's news. The chronograph and the perpetual were things that I had heard privately, but now you've said it in front of an audience. So
Pierre said to me, "Don't tell about the future, Papa."
Okay, so we'll leave that there.
When you have Pierre on the phone, tell him that I'm sorry.
I'll let him know.
But I think if I could just jump in for a second, and feel free to share or not, how much does it cost to make a movement like that? Just roughly, so we have some perspective here.
It's very, very easy question to reply. Before the movement does tick tack tick tack tick tack tick tack, you have to spend minimum 3 million. That the tick tack costs 3 million. If the tick tack is a minute repeater, it might cost 5 million. If it's a grand complication, it might cost 8 million. If it's a perpetual, it will cost 3 million. So the difference of the price is now only the difference of the difficulties. For instance, the finishing of our movement, hour, minute, and second, and we sell the watch for 79 or 78,000, but the finishing is 100% the same as on the minute repeater. We don't have two qualities of finishing. And the watch industry used and still have different finishings depending on the price. And I decided every watch must have the same amount of finishing of the decoration because it's a Biver watch. And the price difference must come not from the finishing, but from the difficulty and numbers of hours you need to master the movement. That's why I say, so the cheapest movement, hour, minute, and second, will cost you 2.5 million. And the most expensive, like a minute repeater, will cost you 5 million. And then the grand complication can be 10, 12 million. That's the cost just to have tick-tack, tick-tack. But once you have tick-tack, tick-tack, you have to produce. And that's additional cost. So the cost I was referring is only the cost to get the first.
Right, the engineering.
Yeah, exactly.
With so many years of experience and so many watches behind you, when you decided to start your own brand, did you have a million ideas in your head for what the first case design was going to be? Did you start from scratch? Where was the excitement? I'm not, of course, all exciting, but what drove you? And was that first design something you had known for ages, or did you have to sit and start from scratch?
Excellent question. Because I will give you the truth in the answer. I have made my own brand in order to have a therapy against the fact that I sold Blancpain. I never came over the fact that I sold Blancpain. And I swear, when I got the check at the bank, Piguet in Geneva, I cried. And Mr. Piguet said to me, "Why do you cry?" Because I sold my people for money. Because Blancpain is not me. Blancpain is my people. And I sold my people. Can you imagine, Mr. Piguet? And he said, "Yes, but that's not true. That's your vision. You must realize, and with this money, you can eventually invest and go in the watch business much further." I said, yeah, thank you. But I cried. And I had the impression that I had sold my people. And between us, that's true. Because Blancpain was not me. Blancpain cannot be me. Because I was just the metteur en scène. I made the scenography. I decided I was the conductor. I didn't make the music. The conductor doesn't know how to play piano eventually. So same for me. I don't know how to assemble a watch. So I have other ideas. So today I must say it's not me. Even today, it's my people. That is why I respect so much my people. So you see, that is what has kept me with Blancpain together. And now I do my own Blancpain. And that's me. I don't copy because I hope you agree with me. My watches don't look like Blancpain. But there is an atmosphere with my people. We are small. We are in the nature. We are only surrounded by cows and grass and trees, and we have all the birds singing every morning. We are in the same philosophy, not exactly in the same attitude, but in the same. And that is why I say my brand is my therapy to forget my huge mistake to have sold Blancpain.
Next question, out in the front.
Thank you so much. It's pretty clear, actually, that even though you're a watch enthusiast and owner of a watch brand, that you're an incredible CEO. Like, that story alone just tells you how thoughtful you are about people. And you talk a lot about your relationship with your son, being a papa and the son relationship. I think as Pierre grows up and hopefully has a family of his own and the brand continues, what would you like to see the Biver watch brand be 30 years from now, 50 years from now? What's most important to you about the organization or the company that it represents?
The most important would be to keep the harmony and the personal relation between the next CEO, I hope it's Pierre, and the team. Because I swear, and if you are all invited to visit, of course, and we will organize this in America for all the collectors, not only America, in the world. I want every year to have a group from a country between 6 and 10 people that I want to invite. Instead of doing advertisement, I think this is a better advertisement than on paper to have a picture of your watch. So the atmosphere, the relationship, the love, the passion, if my brand can keep people that can transmit passion, that can transmit knowledge, that can transmit creativity, that can transmit dynamism, that's what I'm dreaming of. I cannot say how much, it doesn't matter. It's the atmosphere, it's the friendship, it's the help, it's when, I treat my company like my religion. Although I don't have any, I'm Catholic by chance, but nevertheless, I think I would be a good church, a good priest. I could become a good priest.
Thank you, Mr. Biver. This is amazing. I want to thank you for your contribution to the watch industry. I want to thank you for your passion. I understand that you get it. It clicks for you. You understand and you're driven by love and passion. So my question is, throughout the entirety of your life, before watchmaking, during, before your son's birth, during, after, throughout the entirety, when you got knocked off of your course, what made you stay focused and continue to hold on to that love?
It's the same that kept my love for my wife. How come I kept this? How come I didn't lose it? How come I still love her? How come I have even the impression I love her in a better way than before? We should ask her if she agrees with that, but it doesn't cost me to say it was free. No, and that's the magic of love, and passion is love, and passion is love. The difference that love usually means a relation between human beings, and not necessarily a relation between a human being and a piece of art. But all the artists have a passion for their art, and all the artists are in love of what they do. If there's writing, if there's painting, there's sculpture, it's the same. So love is magic. And this is why I say sometimes my way of my commanding my company is not, it's not very usual. It's different. And I believe strongly in spirituality. And I believe in old saying. Why did I choose a stone dial? Because I believe in the effect stone is giving you. You have stones that are giving you hope, strength, optimism. It's a question of belief. And people say, but you will not believe this, Mr. Biver. I said, yes, I believe it. Finished. I believe in that. It's eventually not true, but it doesn't matter. As long as I believe, it's good. So, voila, the spirituality. And I want to finish maybe this. And I hope one day I can bring to my watchers a part of spirituality, and that some people can detect the soul that is in my watch. Because at the end of the day, the watch is just an excuse of the soul. Because behind the watch, the soul is hidden. And I also say to my watchmakers, when you reach perfection, then you are close to eternity. And that is the best compliment and the best satisfaction you can have if you do a job where at the end of the job you can say, okay, I let you go now. See you later in the eternity. Wow. Then you are free. Then you can say, okay, I go, bye-bye. See you next time. That's my dream. That's my real dream.
I think we could continue on and on, but I think that's a nice note to leave it on and to leave this conversation with eternity for now. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming, and thanks for sharing this all with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.